Hi, welcome to the Madly in Love Marriage Blog. We're Mark and Zarin Olsey, and today we're going to talk about the power of listening.
Yeah. It was a number of years ago, I went to a counselor refresher course, and I was paired up with a leader to do an exercise on listening. And it wasn't before maybe 2 minutes had gone by when I was sharing something with this leader, and I found myself stirred to tears. Didn't know why. Then just last weekend, you and I were talking,
Yeah.
and again I was sharing with you some of what I was struggling with, some things going on inside of me, and again before long I was moved to tears. Why? Well, I can tell you why. It's because in both situations someone was really listening. And I know for a fact that when someone really listens, it's so important. I spend most of my day listening to people as a counselor, and I don't begrudge it at all. I'm glad to do it, and I like to do it, and I know it's incredibly important, and I know that when I'm listening to people, they're stirred like I'm stirred, and I want to listen because it's a way of showing that you really care.
I think we all long to have someone listen to us well, and in our busy everyday world, I feel like there's not much opportunity to do that. We're rushing out the door, we kind of assume we know what the other person's saying, and we don't often take time or feel like we even have the time to really sit down and listen to someone at length, especially where we're not interrupting them with my thoughts.
Sure. And nowhere is that more apparent than when we have conflict. Listening is something paramount, but I was going to say almost non-existent
Yeah.
in counseling. In fact, I'm
Yeah.
convinced that one of the biggest reasons conflict continues or escalates is because people are really not listening to each other. They're not hearing each other's perspective, and therefore completely missing each other, and it just compounds the problem and makes it worse and worse and worse as they continue.
Well, and when you're in a conflict, if you and I are in a conflict, so often when Mark is speaking, I'm planning my next argument or my line of defense, and I'm not even really focusing on what he's saying. I'm not laying down my life enough to really hear him out because I'm so focused and consumed with getting my point across.
Right. And what really needs to happen is rather than being defensive, reactionary, we need to have a mindset, first of all, of love, and where we come together, and instead of me, again, assuming what you're going to say or reacting, I'm going to instead be intrigued.
Yeah.
Be intrigued with what you're saying.
And I was thinking, with last week we talked about pausing and how we've got to pause to get our hearts right,
Yes.
so that we're willing to come back with that heart more of love to really listen and to be intrigued. So say more on that.
Sure. You're feeling something, you're telling me something, there's a reason for it. I might be reacting to it, I may not agree with it, but there's a reason, and a heart of love takes time to understand why. And so I must learn to be intrigued with what's going on and ask you about the words you use, the feelings you're expressing, why you're saying it the way you are. I want to be intrigued with it because I really want to understand what's going on inside of my wife's heart.
And as you do that, as you're intrigued and you're asking me more questions, you're really drawing me out and you're allowing me time to process, to think more about what I am feeling. And when it's a safe place, because you're not angry and defensive, so much more can be expressed.
Right. Yeah, it reminds me of a proverb that says, though good advice lies deep within the heart, a person with understanding draws it out. It's true for all of us. There's deep things going on inside of you, deep things going on inside of me. Unless we take time to draw it out, it will rarely be understood,
Right.
really be known to each other.
And that's so important with our children. A huge way that we impart value to our kids is to take time to really, really listen to them, and not to always be in a hurry when they're talking to us, not to treat them as if they're unimportant. But when we take the time to really listen to our kids
And draw them out.
it sends such a message of value to them.
So if you want to have good communication in your marriage, with your children, in your friendships, we can't stress enough how important it is that you really take the time to listen well, to be intrigued with what each other is saying, to draw them out, and so you understand who they are, what's in their heart, and begin to create just a an experience of real healthy dialogue.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening. Talk to you again next week. Goodbye.